As Ukraine approaches its third winter since the Russian invasion, a sobering reality is setting in. Ukraine is due to run out of aid in about 2 weeks from now unless more is provided. President Vladimir Zelensky has been to the U.S. to ask U.S. President Joe Biden for more money. He got $200 million pre-approved, but it hasn't been passed by Congress yet. He's also traveled to Oslo to urge the EU to release aid. But the question is, what happens if and when the money runs out? For a closer look, we are joined by retired Major General David Fraser. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Ukraine currently has a stronghold in areas that include Kherson, the Dnipro River, Bakhmut. Ukraine is estimated to run out of aid in about 2 weeks from now. So then what happens if that happens?
Well, I guess if you're Ukraine, the only good news is that winter is set in and everything slows down naturally. But it's probably the worst news possible because now they don't have the wherewithal to attack Russia and to push them back from their defensive lines. And it gives Russia more time to dig into their defensive lines. So this is really, unfortunately, a win for Russia.
And I'm going to get to that in just a moment, but I want to start with Canada and the amount Canada has given. They've given a lot of aid to Ukraine, in fact, more than $800 million this year alone. But the big push from President Zelensky this week obviously was to the U.S. How important is that relationship to Ukraine?
It's absolutely the most important relationship because the world will take notice of what does the U.S. do. They'll probably follow what the U.S. does. So if U.S. is giving more money, the rest of the nations will probably ante up and give more money. There has been, over the last year, growing donor fatigue on this war. And what Congress has done is given probably a lot of countries the justification, the opportunity not to give Ukraine any more money. And that's the money that Ukraine needs to push back Russia, which now it no longer has.
There's a summit happening in Brussels. EU leaders are meeting. They'll be discussing more aid, more money for Ukraine. What are the chances that President Zelensky walks away with more money after that gathering?
Well, I think he'll walk away with more money, but it will be absolute pennies. When you think about, the U.S. has, pledged a couple $100 million. That'll be gone before the end of play tomorrow. But the world now is not going to be very focused on this, and they're not going to give him a lot of money. They'll probably give him a few $1 million, $100 million here or there, but not the billions that he needs to do what he needs to do against the Russians. And a lot of this is because of Gaza.
Why do you think support for Ukraine has waned over the last couple of months?
I think it's a combination of a number of things. We all expected this past summer that the Ukraine would be able to do a lot more than they did with their counteroffensive, and it never materialized. And in large part, it was because the Russians and the Russian engineers had used millions of mines to stop the Ukrainians. But because of all that, billions of dollars that were invested, nothing came back from it. I think people have just kind of given up on Ukraine to a degree, and expecting, this is the end. What we see on the map today.
So if no more aid is provided or little aid provided, what's the next move from Russia?
Well, I think the next move from Russia, and we've already seen it with Putin in a big conference talking to the public, he's reinstated his war aims, which is, the liberation of the independent provinces. And I think he'll probably consolidate his defensive position. But even Russia doesn't have, anywhere near the offensive capability to do much more than what they've had. By some estimates, they've lost over 300,000 troops. And, that's about almost all the troops that were in there at the beginning of the war. So I think he's run out of steam, too. So I think you've seen both Ukraine and Russia pretty well close to the end of what they can do. And what we're seeing on the map may be the end state.
Retired Major General David Fraser, always appreciate your time and your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.